Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Baby Sleep Connection. I'm your host, Heather Boyd. I am, for this episode, giving you a little bit of a sneak peek at my upcoming workshop on May 30th. If you haven't signed up yet and you are looking for guidance around an attachment-based, holistic, developmentally based sleep approach for your baby, or you have questions about your baby's sleep and are wondering how my approach may differ from those that you have been following in order to get the support that you need to have a better night's sleep, sign up. It will be in the show notes, but I wanted to, for those of you who may not be able to attend, give you the short version of this workshop. Now, even if you are planning on attending, this is just the truncated version. It's just a little bit of a teaser. So there will be more to unpack in the workshop. Not only that, there will be a replay. And best of all, the workshop is free. So if you have any questions whatsoever about this approach to sleep, I encourage you to sign up so that you can either come live or you can get the replay. And in the very least, you'll leave with something that helps you make more sense of your baby's sleep. The workshop is called Why Isn't My Baby Sleeping? The 4 main reasons why your baby is not sleeping the way that you expect. And today we are going through those 4 reasons. So let's jump in. The first reason that your baby is not sleeping as well as you think they should may be because developmentally they're just not capable of it. Their brain is immature. They are not sleeping the same way that adults sleep. It looks different. It looks different when we measure it. It looks different on a practical level. And there are several reasons why this is the case. One is that for a lot of babies, very young especially, and then it gradually reduces as babies get the hang of this, but babies don't start off with any circadian rhythm. They are spreading their sleep out throughout the day and the night. Now, when you have a newborn baby, you kind of expect them to struggle with sleep, but we forget that it does take a long time for this brain to mature enough to look like adult sleep. I would say even at age 2 or 3, sleep is going to look different. It'll look very similar compared to a newborn, but there are still differences. These are the basic differences that I see, and it's a list. You don't need to keep notes. Just this emphasizes the fact that this is a developmental process. Babies spend less time in deep sleep. Now, that's actually a good thing. It reduces the risk of SIDS because they're not in that deep sleep, so they're able to rouse, to regulate all those body systems that their new bodies are trying to figure out, like blood pressure, breathing, temperature, all of these things. But they also have short sleep cycles. And most of you are probably nodding like, yes, of course, I know that for sure. But the fact is that's biological and developmental. Those sleep cycles will get longer. Babies also spend more time in REM sleep. This is rapid eye movement sleep. So if you're spending less time in deep sleep, your sleep cycles are shorter and more of that time is in that more easily interrupted REM sleep. Gosh, no wonder our babies are waking up for support to fall back asleep. But let's not forget, babies are also feeding through the night. Their stomachs are very tiny. Breast milk is very high in sugar and low in fat, which means frequent feeding. And even with formula-fed babies, there's a lot of growing happening in the first year. So waking up to feed is one of those developmental interruptions to sleep that won't play a role as they get older and move beyond nighttime feeds. Of course, another developmental difficulty that babies have with sleep is that they're not able to meet a lot of their other needs. So you're already feeding them and making sure the temperature is okay, but they can't get comfy. They can't roll over and pull up the covers. They can't shut the window if it's noisy out. And so they're interrupted from this immature sleep and having to signal for support to change the environment or to be cuddled back to sleep because something pulled them out of that sleep that they were having. Overall, when you've got an immature brain that is going through immense changes in the first few years, you are going to have more interruptions in sleep, and sleep is going to be more interruptible. I know that's not a word, but I think you know what I mean. And so when we're looking at understanding what the heck is happening with our baby's sleep, we've got to keep development and the brain in mind. Okay, here's reason number 2 that your baby isn't sleeping as well as you expected. Your baby is unique, and getting to know who they are and what it is that they do need to sleep well is part of the challenge, part of the game of parenting. The 2 key factors that I really like to delve into with parents is sensory system and temperament. These are things that can be quite unique to your baby, and the more that you learn about your baby, the more clear it is what kind of sensory experiences they need to have a regulated nervous system, which is required for sleep. And the more you understand about their temperament, what are their traits? Are they highly sensitive? Are they very predictable and regular? Are they very persistent? Are they very laid back? All of these factors are going to go into painting a picture of what sleep, and in fact, their entire day and their interactions with people and their experiences with things, this is all going to have an impact on it. When we can understand our baby's sleep through sensory and temperament lenses, it all starts to make a little bit more sense why our babies may not fit in with the cookie cutter approach. The third reason that your baby may not be sleeping as well as you expect is underlying health issues. Now, I'll emphasize that these are relatively rare, but as I say to parents that I'm working with who are navigating, trying to identify or solve underlying health issues, you can do every attachment-based strategy in the book, and it's not going to fix the health issue. So it will certainly give you a nice foundation for figuring things out and for meeting your baby's needs under challenging circumstances, but it doesn't solve the underlying health issue. Now, the obvious ones are things like teething and illness, which every baby goes through, but we also have constipation that can interrupt sleep, obstructive sleep apnea that would be waking your baby out of deep sleep, restless legs or other mineral deficiency related sleep disorders, parasomnias, sleepwalking, sleep talking. These are worth identifying so that if they are treatable, you can treat them. And if they are a challenge that is transient, you'll know that you can put your attention on managing to support your baby's sleep through this as easily as possible. The fourth and last reason that your baby may not be sleeping as well as you think they should is because your expectations aren't aligned with the reality. Now, this one's going to be the tough one for a lot of you because you have very strong stories, likely, I know I did, about what sleep is supposed to look like. So even when you consider your baby's development, your baby's sensory system, their temperament, any health issues that need to be identified, resolved, or addressed, you still have this story that babies are supposed to sleep through the night at a certain age, 6 months, for example, or that they should be able to be put down drowsy but awake, or what's another one that we all tend to believe, that they should never nurse to sleep, that if you're carrying them around or bed sharing, they'll never sleep independently. And so the stories that you have about what is typical or biologically normal for baby sleep can be really out of alignment with what the reality is. And I'll give you a few examples. Some research quite a while ago, but babies haven't changed all that much, showed that only 16% of babies were sleeping through the night at 6 months. That is a huge difference compared to the story that most of us are told about when babies should be sleeping through. Only 16%. That is not very much at 6 months. So if your baby is not sleeping through the night at 6 months, they are part of the majority. Also, there's some research to suggest, and from clinical experience with the families I work with, I have seen this happen over and over again. There is a peak of night waking at about 9 months that gradually tapers off moving towards a year. And this can be really surprising for a lot of parents. They don't realize that sleep is not linear. They think that sleep should be better at 9 months than it was at 6 months. And there can be this blip, right? This blip that makes sleep challenging for no other reason than we can assume that it's linked back to point number 1, development. because it does tend to be across the board, not for every baby, but pretty consistent enough showing up at the 9-ish month mark to think that this is related to developmental changes. I'll also add that part of the narrative that we have around baby sleep is that babies should never sleep with you, that it is irresponsible, and that it's not possible to make it safe. The Lullaby Trust in the UK did a survey a few years ago, 2021, that collected data and showed that 9 out of every 10 parents in the survey bed shared at least part of the time. And yet only 4 out of 10 received some guidance from healthcare professionals about how to make that safe. So that's 9 out of 10 families that are bed sharing in a culture where we tend to feel ashamed about bed sharing, feel like we're doing something wrong. We try to avoid it. And in avoiding it, we sometimes put the sleep situation in an even less than optimal circumstance, like sitting up exhausted with your baby in your arms on the couch, instead of being supported to find a way to reduce the risks of bed sharing and to create a safe environment for your baby. I'll also add that another study, and this was in 2004 by Blair and Hall, showed that 20% of families were bed sharing on any given night. So if you looked at the data, and this was out of the UK as well, although there'd be reasons to expect that that wouldn't be all that different in Canada or the US, that 20% of families on every given night are bed sharing. And yet that's not the story that we're hearing. It's not the message that we're getting from doctors or most healthcare professionals around meeting families where they're at, giving them the information that can adapt their expectations first and foremost, that bed sharing is quite evolutionarily normal, it's biologically expected, it's easier often on parents and babies. And yet when our expectations are not aligned with that, then we end up making sleep harder instead of looking for ways to make it easier and safer. Those are the 4 points. Again, I will strongly encourage you to look into signing up for the workshop on May 30th. It's online, and I'll be able to work in some time for questions, which is always really exciting. And actually, when you sign up, the sign up form asks you what questions that you have, so that I have a little idea of what kind of questions are going to come up. And there may even be a chance, even if you're not there, to have your question answered. I do hope that this has given you some context around why sleep might feel so challenging right now. And I'm wishing you all the best for an easy and comfortable night's sleep, sending all the sweet sleep vibes your way. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.